Good evening. This, the 53rd meeting of the 72nd term of the Baltimore City Council, is now called to order. We're going to ask you if you have your cell phones to please turn them off or put them on vibrate. Tonight, invocation will be provided by Councilman Leon Pinkett. And after the invocation, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Most gracious and eternal Father, this is the confidence that we have in you, that if we ask anything according to your will, you heareth us. And if we know that you hear us, we know that we have the petition that we desired of you. Recognizing that faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen, we are not deterred by what Baltimore appears to be, but are emboldened by what we know that you have created Baltimore to become. Therefore, we declare that God is Lord of Baltimore. You are in the midst of her, and as a result, despite her challenges, she shall not be moved. Baltimore is a loving city because you have commended your love towards us. And the love that we share beareth all things, it believeth all things, it hopeth all things, it endureth all things, it rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. It is not deceitful, it hates that which is evil, and embraces that which is good. Baltimore is a peaceful city, because you have left your peace with us, a perfect peace. Therefore our hearts are not troubled, and neither do we fear. Baltimore is a safe city. You have heard our cry during our season of trouble, and have saved us from our distress. Baltimore is a sober city. We are not an addicted city. We are temperate and spirit-led. We are sound in our faith, charity, and patience. Baltimore is a prosperous city. Above all things, our citizens are prosperous and in health, even as their souls prosper. Baltimore is an equitable city. We are not a segregated city, but are of one heart and one soul, and have all things in common. Baltimore is a healthy city. We are not just known for our health institutions, but are renowned for the physical, mental, and emotional health of our citizens. The light of Baltimore breaketh forth as the morning, and the health of our citizens springeth forth speedily. Baltimore is a city that values and celebrates life. We know that the thief cometh not but for to steal, to kill, and destroy. But your desire for Baltimore is that we would have life, and that we would have it more abundantly. And lastly, Baltimore is a city that is united, because your psalmist declares that it is both good and pleasant for brethren to dwell together in unity. It is like the precious ointment upon the head that ran down even Aaron's beard, to the skirt of his garments, as the dew on Hermon, and as it even descended into Mount Zion. And just like there, such is the case in Baltimore, that in our unity, God, you delight in commanding your blessing, even life forevermore. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Reverend, I want to thank you for the invitation. I want to thank Councilman Pinkett, who's also a minister in his own right, for the invocation. The clerk will call the roll of the members.
President Young, Cohen, Scott, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Reisinger, Costello, Stokes, Sneed, Clark. Mr. President, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Tonight's Showcase Baltimore presentation will be provided by Meredith Spear on behalf of Dress for Success Greater Baltimore. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. As you mentioned, my name is Meredith Spear, and I'm a board member for Suited to Succeed, a Baltimore nonprofit. I'm here on behalf of Dress for Success Greater Baltimore, which is a project started by Suited to Succeed in August 2018. We help female clients on the path to financial stability and economic stability. We work with referral partners who have clients that are in job preparedness courses. Tonight I'll be speaking about an event that we have upcoming. It is a prom giveaway, and we'd like anyone to help promote this. It's our first time doing such event. There's no appointment necessary. You can come for free. It's a free event. The attire is completely free, and we'll be giving away prom dresses and attire. We just ask that high school students bring their ID. So we'd love help promoting this. Details can be found on our website at greaterbaltimore.dressforsuccess.org. Again, that's greaterbaltimore.dressforsuccess.org. And if anybody has donations, we're collecting prom attire, formal wear, even bridesmaid dresses. They can be dropped off during our program hours, which are 10 to 3, and we're located at 22 Light Street. downtown Baltimore. And again, all of that can be found on our website, so greaterbaltimore.dressforsuccess.org. Thank you very much for having me here, and I look forward to continue doing good work in Baltimore.
Thank you. It is the council custom to journalize the invocation act for motion to journalize the prayer. Motion by Councilor Scott, second by Councilor Dorsey. All those in favor of journalize the invocation say aye. All those opposed nay. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. We'll now proceed with the adoption of the journal.
Mr. President, the journal of the proceedings from the February 25th City Council meeting is on council members' desks.
Is there a motion to approve the journal? Moved by Councilman Scott, second by Councilman Henry. All those in favor of adopting the journal say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion carried. The journal is adopted. Executive nomination.
EA 19-0240, Dr. Letitia Jaraza, Commissioner, Baltimore City Department of Health, District 11.
This has been assigned to the Executive Appointments Committee. Bills to be introduced.
City Council Bill 19-0346, repeal of Ordinance 96-032, New Lexington Terrace Plant Unit Development. For the purpose of repealing Ordinance 96-032 as amended by Ordinance 98-235, which designated certain properties as a residential plant unit development known as New Lexington Terrace Plant Unit Development, and providing for a special effective date. Sponsors Costello, Bullock.
This has been assigned to the Land Use Committee.
City Council Bill 19-0347, City Property, naming the baseball diamond located in the southeast portion of Swan Park, 300 West Macoma Street, the Alkaline Field. For the purpose of naming the baseball diamond located in the southeast portion of Swan Park, 300 West Macoma Street, the Alkaline Field. Sponsors Costello, President Young, Reisinger, Stokes, Bullock, Middleton.
Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is to rename a field at Swan Park in honor of Al Kaline, who went to Southern High School and is a Major League Baseball Hall of Famer who played for the Detroit Tigers for the majority of his career. That's all. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. This has been assigned to the Judiciary Legislative Investigation Committee.
City Council Bill 19-0348, zoning conditional use conversion of a single-family dwelling unit to 2 dwelling units in the R7 zoning district, variances 343 Robert Street. For the purpose of permitting, subject to certain conditions, the conversion of a single-family dwelling unit to 2 dwelling units in the R7 zoning district on the property known as 343 Robert Street, as outlined in red on the accompanying plat, and granting variances from certain bulk and off-street parking regulations. Sponsors Costello.
This has been assigned to the Land Use and Transportation Committee.
City Council Bill 19-0349, zoning conditional use conversion of a single-family dwelling unit to 2 dwelling units in the R8 zoning district, variance 2029 East Lombard Street. For the purpose of permitting, subject to certain conditions, the conversion of a single-family dwelling unit to 2 dwelling units in the R8 zoning district on the property known as 2029 East Lombard Street, as outlined in red on the accompanying plat, and granting a variance from certain off-street parking regulations. Sponsors Sneed.
This has been assigned to the Land Use and Transportation Committee.
City Council Bill 19-0350, rezoning 1432 North Chester Street. For the purpose of changing the zoning for the property known as 1432 North Chester Street, as outlined in red on the accompanying plat, from the R8 zoning district to the C1 zoning district. Sponsors Sneed, President Young.
This has been assigned to the Land Use and Transportation Committee.
City Council Bill 19-0351, rezoning 3515 East Lombard Street. For the purpose of changing the zoning for the property known as 3515 East Lombard Street, as outlined in red on the accompanying plat, from the R8 zoning district to the C1 zoning district. Sponsors Cohen.
This has been assigned to the Land Use and Transportation Committee.
City Council Bill 19-0352, zoning conditional use conversion of a single-family dwelling unit to 2 dwelling units in the R7 zoning district, variances 645 McEwen Avenue. For the purpose of permitting, subject to certain conditions, the conversion of a single-family dwelling unit to 2 dwelling units in the R7 zoning district on the property known as 645 McEwen Avenue, as outlined in red on the accompanying plat, and granting variances from certain bulk regulations and off-street parking requirements. Sponsors Clark.
This has been assigned to the Land Use and Transportation Committee. Resolution to be introduced.
City Council Resolution 19-0143R, investigatory hearing, agency permitting processes. For the purpose of inviting the heads of the Department of Finance, Department of Public Works, Department of Transportation, Health Department, the Department of Housing and Community Development, Mayor's Office of Information Technology, and representatives of the Baltimore Police Department and the Baltimore City Fire Department to provide information about their agencies' permitting and licensing processes. Sponsors Slifer, Henry, Bullock, Sneed, Burnett, Pinkett, Dorsey, Middleton, Cohen, Clark.
Please note Councilman Stokes as a co-sponsor, Councilman Reisinger as a co-sponsor, Councilman Scott as a co-sponsor, and Council President Young as co-sponsor. Chair recognizes Councilman Schleifer.
Thank you, Mr. President. So when you walk into the various city agencies, you'll see very different things. In some agencies, you can walk in and still see employees using typewriters. In some agencies, you walk in using pens and paper, and in some agencies, they're using computers and technology. The purpose of this hearing, as we know, whether you want to have a block party in the city or you want to build an addition onto your house or do some other work, you'll get very different experiences when you go for the permitting process. And so the purpose of this hearing is to hear how the various agencies that issue permits in Baltimore City handle the process in which they operate. And the goal of this would that we can somehow get all agencies on the same page at one point and streamline this process so that the end user, our constituents, our citizens, our customers can have an easy process to go through, one that encourages them to follow the rules and get the proper permits. And so that's the reason I'm calling for this hearing, and I appreciate all the co-sponsors. Thank you.
Thank you. This has been assigned to the Judiciary and Legislative Investigation Committee. You can find the consent calendar in Section A at the back of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar? Motion by Councilman Schleifer, second by Councilman Reisinger. All in favor of approving the consent calendar, say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion carried. This calendar is approved. We now move to bills on second reader. Executive Appointments Committee.
EA 19-0238, Michael S. Harrison, Commissioner, Baltimore City Police Department.
Chair recognizes Councilman Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. The executive appointments held a hearing for the Commissioner Harrison. Where's my sheet? At 10 o'clock, 5 p.m., 5 to 8:30 p.m., and it came out favorable. It voted the whole executive appointments.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Chair recognizes Councilman Scott. Who else said? Who else? Anybody else said nay?
No one. There's only one.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, we should do. Mr. President, members of the council, I want to explain my vote. Commissioner Harrison is the right person at the right time. He understands that crime fighting and reforms go hand in hand. However, at the end of this long process, before I vote, I want to thank my colleagues. I think that initially with another nominee, this council, under the president's leadership, undertook what was unheard of, a vetting process with these last two candidates for police commissioner. And the council, we all took a bit of criticism for that. They said that we were going above our scope, that we were doing too much, that we should just approve the person before us because crime was just so bad in the city. And we pushed back and we said that this isn't about putting someone in place. This is about putting the right person in place. And when you look at this process that we went through, at the end of the day, this is how we ended up with the best person for the job at the right time, because we as a council said that the city deserves better than just any warm body in the street. So I just want to say thank you to the president, and for all my members of the council, all the members of the council, I vote yes.
Thank you. It was seconded by Councilman Clark. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The motion has it. Congratulations to Commissioner Harrison. This nomination is confirmed. Housing and Urban Affairs Committee. I said it. I said it. I'll say it again. This nomination is confirmed. I think I said that. Housing, y'all can't hear me in the back? Okay. I'll scream into the mic. How about that? Housing and Urban Affairs Committee.
City Council Bill 18-0303, City Streets Closing a portion of West Barney Street. For the purpose of condemning and closing a portion of West Barney Street, extending easterly 208 feet, more or less, to the east side of Clarkson Street, from the intersection of the south side of West Barney Street, east side of Race Street, as shown on Plat 128-A-36A in the Office of the Department of Transportation, and providing for a special effective date.
Chair recognizes Councilman Bullock.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee heard this bill on February 26th. There are no amendments. I move the bill favorable.
Second by Councilman Costello. All those in favor of approving this bill say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion to approve this bill moves to third reader.
City Council Bill 18-0308, Community Relations, Housing Discrimination, Source of Income. For the purpose of prohibiting as unlawful discriminatory housing practices, certain practices based on source of income, defining certain terms, clarifying and conforming related provisions, and generally related to community relations and discriminatory practices.
Chair recognizes Councilman Bullock.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee held a series of hearings and work sessions on this important legislation beginning in December 2018. I move the bill favorable.
Second, Chair recognizes Council Vice President Middleton.
Mr. President, there is an amendment on my colleague's desk. On your behalf, I move the amendment.
Second by Councilman Pinkett. Oh, he's passing them out. They should have been passed out. Guys, you got to snake this. It was second by Councilman Pinkett. Chair recognizes Councilman Dorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I just want to acknowledge that I respect the Council President's intentions with this amendment. We have heard significant opposition from the multi-housing landlord lobby on this bill. Some of whom have thousands of apartments available for rent. Some of whom, among those thousands, have hundreds available that are sitting vacant, and still they don't want to lease these to voucher recipients and anybody that would fall under the scope of the protection of this bill. And so I just want to say that there's a lot of belief that passing any bill will get any of those people, businesses to participate, that they'll just shift the way that they decide to refuse to rent to certain people. So what I want to say is that I really respect the Council President's intention. While I'm going to vote against this amendment, I really respect the Council President's intention here to bring forth something that will actually entice these multi-housing landlords to actually cease discrimination, that they'll participate in allowing more people to have access to housing opportunity in the city, and that should this amendment pass, and we don't see that kind of participation, that we'll be back here in the not too distant future looking at another bill to repeal that and just outright require everybody to participate. So thank you for letting me speak on this, Mr. Council President.
Thank you. Councilwoman Clark.
If I may, Mr. President, members of the council, I'd like to speak against this amendment, if I may. Years ago now, we did adopt a source of income amendment here in the Baltimore City Council. It is now in the code of the city of Baltimore, and in fact, is part of what describes the kind of sources of income that you can't discriminate against. But really, this is an amendment to the Community Relations Code of the city of Baltimore. It's not about whether we should use vouchers or not. It's about protecting those persons who happen to have as part of their income voucher income. In other words, it's a protection of a class of people, just as that same part of the Code of Baltimore protects people from being discriminated by reason of religion, of race, etc. It's our civil rights code. It's about people. So this is not so much about vouchers, which might be suitable in another part of the city code. This is about people that carry not traditional sources of income into their everyday life to survive. And it includes also if you're getting pay from a divorce, etc. So it's not just about vouchers, but it includes them. And I think that we can handle this. I really honestly believe that. This is the enlargement. This is saying the whole city should be doing what now, under the first bill, was only a small segment, although I might say that small segment has not been overrun or destroyed by what we did enact years ago. So Mr. President and members, we all are carrying around a bar of soap, and it says, give us a clean bill. I know that the concerns are legitimate. The people bringing them forward are people that we respect. But first and foremost, this is a civil rights bill. Protect the people who are included, who happen to be, by the way, carrying vouchers to the marketplace. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the second, Councilman Bernard. I'm giving you all the chance to say what you need to say, but please be brief, because I have to be down in Annapolis for the 40th District's event tonight that starts at 6. So please be brief. If you're going to vote no, but please be brief.
Thank you, Mr. President. And again, I want to second my colleague in that I absolutely understand the intention of the amendment, do not intend to support it, and would just like to share two short examples. A member of my family is developmentally disabled, is one of the sweetest aunts I have, has a apartment full of teddy bears, works at a community center, also happens to have a voucher. And so when I think about if she's trying to find another place to live and that cap has been hit, where does she go? You know, she's not bothering anybody. She's not having any loud parties. All of the things that we like to characterize people with vouchers as exhibiting, she doesn't do any of that. The other thing I'd like to mention is that in 2 bills below, we have a human trafficking bill. One of the biggest challenges with helping victims of human trafficking out of that life is affordable housing and access, and many of them are low income and have vouchers. So, you know, again, I'd hate to be in a situation where an apartment building has hit this threshold and we have victims that can't find housing, who then get pushed back into that lifestyle. So those are things, the people that I would hope that we can think about when voting on this amendment, that there are people who are in dire straits, who are looking for affordable housing and should be able to live anywhere they want in Baltimore. So, you know, just wanted to put that as top of mind.
Councilman, Chair recognizes Councilwoman Snead.
Thank you, Council President. I also agree with some of my colleagues here that it's not to go against you, Council President, but I put myself in a position that as something was to happen with my family and I would be on a voucher and I wanted to raise my child anywhere in Baltimore City, I want to have that opportunity. But for God, and the grace of God, that I don't have a voucher. But if I was to have one, again, I would want to live anywhere. My district has the most vouchers. And one of the things that people keep saying is, not in my community, but where else? This is Baltimore City. And so is it fair that folks just live in one area? It's not. But this is a way to spread it out all over. When you looked at the numbers say it will not have a negative effect. It will have a positive effect where though it will be spread out against Baltimore City. So I say, please, colleagues, look at yourselves and other family members to know that something, but for the grace of God, that we don't end up in a voucher and that we will one day need help. So think about it. Thank you.
I'll call for the vote. I have many relatives on vouchers as well, and it's not that I'm insensitive to people that have vouchers, because this bill really should be about Baltimore County, Anne Arundel County, and those places. But oftentimes the advocates come to Baltimore City as a testing ground. I need you to go to Baltimore County and Anne Arundel County, because this is kind of the bill that's needed there. So I vote yes. Who? Oh, Chair recognizes Councilman Henry.
Oh, we have to do the amendment before? Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Mr. President, on our colleagues' desks is another amendment to your amendment that the Vice President just moved. I'm sorry, I was under the impression that we were going to vote on the first amendment and then do this.
We can move them as a
So
joint.
the amendment on desks right now is a reauthorization amendment for the 20% threshold that's been proposed. I hear many of the concerns from my colleagues, and I've heard the concerns from advocates and citizens and our constituents that the 20% threshold is not as needed as believed. I am proposing this amendment to gather some data. This would require that 4 years from now, the council would have a study commissioned. We would see how this program has worked, see how many complaints have been made, see how many apartment complexes had changed the level of voucher participation during that time. And if after seeing that information and holding public hearings, if the council feels that this threshold is still needed in the public interest, it would have to vote again to reauthorize it for 4 more years. But if this was not found to have been as necessary as was thought, then this 20% threshold would go away, and we would have a simple source of income would be a simple protected class with no exceptions at that point. And so I move that amendment.
Second by Councilwoman, second by Council Vice President Middleton. Second by Councilman Costello. Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd be remiss if I didn't stand here and say that it's quite interesting that sometimes we refer to this as a reauthorization and sometimes we refer to this as a sunset. Nonetheless, I applaud my colleague, Councilman Henry's intention on this, and am supportive of good government in terms of reauthorizations. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Second by Councilman Henry. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move Councilman Henry's bill with my bill to move it as amended.
Me with your amendments.
We need to vote on mine, and then we need to...
And then move it, okay. So we're
Okay,
going to vote on the bills separate and then combine them.
It was second by Councilman Henry on his amendment.
I'm moving my amendment to amend your amendment.
Absolutely.
And I'm moving my bill as amended?
No.
Okay.
We have to, we need a second.
It was second by Council Vice President Middleton.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Middleton. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Middleton.
So I'd like to move my bill as amended.
Second by Councilman Henry. All those in favor say aye.
Or my amended.
All opposed, nay. Roll call.
President Young?
Yes.
President Young votes yes. Councilman Cohen?
The information is the amendment by Councilwoman Middleton was amended by Councilman Henry's amendment to sunset the bill. That's all they did. They sunset the amendment. Yeah. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Clark. I have to recognize you first, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Clark.
If you will please explain what just happened and how we should vote, because I apologize, but I do not understand what just happened. You amended an amendment. I got that. You put my colleagues from the 4th District amendment as part of the President's amendment, all in one thing. And then that is being moved, and there was apparently a vote.
It was a second. It hadn't voted.
So I'd like a roll call on that vote, Mr. President, if I may, because it is on a combined bill that I would like a second to read
That's an
the
amendment.
new
That's an
amendment.
That was an amendment,
I will.
Councilwoman.
Before I vote. Thank you.
Chair recognizes
May I-
Councilman Henry.
Mr. President, I'm sorry, and I understand that this has been a little bit confusing, and so what I would encourage,
I don't think it's confusing.
my colleagues, is if you take the amendment that says offered by Councilmember Henry, and you just fold it over, there's a section 3, and then you can literally hold it up under the President's amendment, which has a section 1 and 2. Okay, and so now, because we have approved my amendment of the President's amendment, what would be before us now is this, which is 3 major sections. And that is what is before us. Which is a 20% threshold with a 4-year sunset or reauthorization.
So we're voting on, point of information, we are voting now on a combined bill that is, that
Amendment.
amends the bill
Yes.
to a 20% cap
Correct.
until 2023.
Yes.
Correct.
And then after that says,
It has to be
it doesn't
reauthorized.
say it terminates, it
Yes.
just says if the council. Let me read it out loud. If you do not mind, there are people listening who don't have this. The exception in this subsection automatically expires on June 30th, 2023. That's the 20%. Unless the City Council, after causing an appropriate study to be undertaken, conducting public hearings and hearing testimonial evidence, finds that the exception, that's the 20%, remains in the public interest, in which case this subsection may be extended for 4 more years. Let me just say now, I've asked for a roll call, that...
I asked for the roll call.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President, for that. That basically, how are you going to analyze for how a program works if you don't have the program for this period of time?
No, you will have the.
You have the 20% program. How do you know what it would be without it?
Pardon?
Thank you.
Roll call.
President Young?
Yes.
President Young votes yes. Councilman Cohen?
No.
Councilman Cohen votes no. Councilman Scott? Councilman Scott votes yes. Councilman Dorsey? Councilman Dorsey votes no. Councilman Henry? Councilman Henry votes yes. Councilman Schleifer? Councilman Schleifer votes yes. Councilwoman Middleton? Councilwoman Middleton votes yes. Councilman Pinkett? Councilman Pinkett votes yes. Councilman Burnett? Councilman Burnett votes no. Councilman Bullock? Councilman Bullock votes yes. I'm sorry, you said yes? Or he said yes, okay. Councilman Reisinger? Councilman Reisinger votes yes. Councilman Costello? Councilman Costello votes yes. Councilman Stokes? Councilman Stokes votes yes. Councilwoman Sneed? Councilwoman Sneed votes no. Councilwoman Clark?
I'd like to explain my vote by saying what I said before.
Councilwoman, would you wait till I recognize you, please? Chair recognizes Councilwoman Clark.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Would you please stand?
I'll be glad to. Is there anything else?
Councilwoman, you know the rules of the council.
I do,
Okay.
and one of the rules is...
That you have to stand and you have to be recognized by the president. And I recognize you.
I appreciate
and you remained
that.
in your seat.
Speaking of rules, it's very difficult when these amendments arrive and people like me and the people that don't have a piece of paper at all to read don't understand what's going on. This is a big deal. And it's a big deal that's lost. And it's lost, and then we're going to a study of how it would be if we didn't have that cap. But we have nothing to study because we have the cap. During those years of study, I vote, is this civil rights yet? No.
Councilwoman Clark votes no. Should I read it? Mr. President, we have a vote of 10 ayes and 5 nays.
The motion is approved. This bill is amended. This bill moves to third reader. Oh, Chair recognized Councilman Bullock. Okay. All right. Huh? What'd you say? Huh? Bullock, you have to move the bill as amended.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill amended as favorable.
Thank you. This bill moves to third reader. We voted on the bill. Okay, roll call on the amended bill. I thought we did that.
President Young?
Yes.
President Young votes yes. Councilman Cohen? Councilman Cohen votes yes. Councilman Scott? Councilman Scott votes yes. Councilman Dorsey? Councilman Dorsey votes yes. Councilman Henry? Councilman Henry votes yes. Councilman Schleifer? Councilman Schleifer votes yes. Councilwoman Middleton? Councilwoman Middleton votes yes. Councilman Pinkett? Councilman Pinkett votes yes. Councilman Burnett? Councilman Burnett votes yes. Councilman Bullock? Councilman Bullock votes yes. Councilman Reisinger? Councilman Reisinger votes yes. Councilman Costello? Councilman Costello votes yes. Councilman Stokes? Councilman Stokes votes yes. Councilwoman Sneed? Councilwoman Sneed votes yes. Councilwoman Clark? Councilwoman Clark votes yes. Mr. President, we have a vote of 15 ayes.
This bill has been approved. This bill will show up on third reader. Judiciary and Legislative Investigation Committee.
City Council Bill 18-0310, city property renaming the Oliver Pool to the John D. Murdoch Pool for the purpose of changing the name of the Oliver Pool located at 1641 North Spring Street to the John D. Murdoch Pool.
Before we move forward, Chair recognizes Councilman Scott.
Mr. President, I make a motion and read short titles for remainder of the meeting.
Second by Councilman Dorsey. All in favor of short title of remainder of the meeting, say yes. Say aye. All those opposed, nay. The motion carries. Chair recognizes Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. President. We held a hearing on this bill on March 5th. There is an amendment on my colleague's desk. At this time, I move the amendment favorably.
Second by Councilman Scott. All those in favor, by Councilman Stokes. All those in favor of approving these amendments, say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion is approved. This bill is amended. Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill favorably as amended.
Second by Councilman Scott. All those in favor of approving this bill, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion is approved. This bill moves to third reader.
City Council Bill.
Yes.
City Council Bill 19-0323, hotels anti-human trafficking training.
Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's amendments on my colleague's desk. At this time, I move the amendments.
Second by Councilman Burnett. All those in favor of approving these amendments, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion approved. The bill is amended. Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill favorably as amended.
Second by Councilman Burnett. All those in favor of approving this bill, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion approved. This bill moves to third reader.
City Council Bill 19-0332, the Baltimore City Sustainability Plan.
Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. We held a hearing on this bill on March 5th. There was a discussion during the hearing for the entire council to entertain an amendment if the Sustainability Commission was supportive of that. We did receive information back from them that they were, and I'd like to defer to my colleague, Councilwoman Clark.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Clark.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the council, in the sustainability report to the council, which is well worth the read, there are many steps being proposed and already underway for solid waste to meet the challenge of losing incineration in Baltimore City, a nice challenge that it is. So I have here a motion that was approved by the entire board, or the majority of the board of the Sustainability Commission. And what it does is it amends the target date from 2050 to 2030. It cuts 20 years off the target date for us to reduce food waste by 50% in Baltimore City. Now, obviously that's going to be done by composting effort mainly, citywide, already being planned to get underway as soon as possible. And so that goal was at first in 2050, but the amendment is 2030. I would like to move that amendment. Do I have a second?
Second by Councilman Reisinger. All those in favor of approving these amendments, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion is approved. The bill is amended. Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill favorably as amended.
Second by Councilman Dorsey. All those in favor of approving this bill, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion is approved. This bill moves to third reader.
City Council Bill 19-0336, Public Ethics Law Conforming Modifications.
Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendments on my colleague's desk. At this time, I move the amendments favorably.
Councilwoman Middleton. All those in favor of approving these amendments, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion is approved. This bill is amended. Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill favorably as amended.
Second by Council Vice President Middleton. All those in favor of approving this bill, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion is approved. This bill moves to third reader.
City Council Resolution 18-0107R, Investigative Hearing, Arson and Fire Fatality Awareness Community Risk Reduction Program.
Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill favorably.
Second by Vice President Middleton. All those in favor of adopting Resolution 18-0107R, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion is carried. This resolution is adopted.
City Council Resolution 19-0127R, Request for State Action, Reform Residential Retail, Electricity, and Natural Gas Markets.
Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill favorably.
Second by Councilman Henry. All those in favor of adopting Resolution 19-0127R, say aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carried. This resolution is adopted. Taxation, Finance, and Economic Development Committee.
City Council Bill 18-0280, Sale of Property, Former Bed of Dillon Street.
The Chair recognizes Vice President Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. President. The bill was heard on February 28th, 2019. City Council President sponsored it at the request of the administration. The committee approved the bill as favorable. I move the bill with a favorable report.
Second by Councilman Cohen. All those in favor of approving this bill, say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion is approved. This bill moves to third reader.
City Council Bill 18-0284, Sale of Property, Former Bed of a 10-foot alley bounded by North Howard Street, West 24th Street, May Street, and West 23rd Street.
Chair recognizes Vice President Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill was also heard on February 28th, 2019. Sponsor, City Council President, at the request of the administration. The committee approved the bill as favorable. I move the bill with a favorable report.
Second by Councilman Stokes. All those in favor of approving this bill, say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion is approved. This bill moves to third reader.
City Council Bill 19-0330, Yield Excise Tax Rates.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee also heard this bill on February 28th, 2019. Council President as sponsor and at the request of the administration. The committee approved the bill as favorable. I move the bill with a favorable report.
Second by Councilman Bullock. All those in favor of approving this bill, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion is approved. This bill moves to third reader. Chair recognizes Councilman
Thank you, sir.
Dorsey.
On page 6 of the agenda, under Bill 19-0336, there are no listed.
Page what?
Page 6, top of the page, 19-0336. There are no listed sponsors for this bill. Typically, even if it's an administration bill listed, introduced by the council president, it would list a sponsor. I just want to make a note of that, and I'm not sure.
Say that again, Councilman.
There are no sponsors listed under the public ethics law.
They don't need no sponsors. This bill really doesn't need any sponsors.
Okay, thank you.
Third reader for final passage.
City Council Bill 18-0314, Repeal of Ordinance 87-1171, the Wyman Park Medical Center Joint Use Facility with the Johns Hopkins University Plant Unit Development. President Young, Cohen, Scott, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Reisinger, Costello, Stokes, Snead, Clark.
Please note the Council President abstained. This bill is approved. Committee announcement. Chair recognizes Councilman Scott.
Mr. President, On March the 19th at 5:01 p.m., immediately following Budget Committee, Public Safety Committee will have a hearing for City Council Resolution 18-0092R, which is monthly council staff meetings for the Baltimore City Police Department. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee announcement. Chair recognizes Councilman Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are moving the Education Youth Committee hearing that was announced for April 4th to April 10th to accommodate opening day for the Orioles. This is the Youth Voices, Youth Violence to address violence within our schools. I also rise to announce a hearing for May 2nd in the Education Youth Committee. It is on youth jobs. Thank you, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes Vice President Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. President. Taxation, Finance, and Economic Development Committee will hear City Council Bill 19-0141R this Thursday, March 14th, 2019, at 10:05 a.m. I move for suspension of rules.
Second by Councilman Stokes. All in favor, suspend the rules, announce the hearing, say aye. All opposed, nay. The motion carried. Chair recognizes Vice President Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm suspending the rules because we're having the hearing this Thursday, March 14th, 2019, 10:05 a.m. It's for the creation of Pennsylvania Avenue Black Arts and Entertainment District.
Chair recognizes Councilman Bullock.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Housing and Urban Affairs Committee will be having a hearing on City Council Bill 19-0315, Waterfront Management District and Waterfront Management Authority. That will be tomorrow, Tuesday, March 12th at 3:30 p.m. in Council Chambers. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Budget and Appropriations Committee will hold a hearing on Resolution 18-0091R on Tuesday, March 19th at 5 p.m. in Chambers. Budget Oversight hearing joining with Councilman Scott's hearing. Thank you, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes Councilman Reisinger.
Mr. President, the Land Use and Transportation Committee will hold a hearing on Bill 19-0324 on March the 20th, 1 p.m. in the Council Chambers. This is the dockless vehicles regulation and taxation. The committee will hold a hearing on Bill 19-0335 on Wednesday, May the 1st at 1 p.m. in the Council Chambers. This is a zoning use regulations for banquet hall.
Thank you. Regular announcement. I'm asking everyone to please be brief with their announcements. Got to get down to Annapolis. It's 40 District Day in Annapolis, and I do want to make sure I'm there. I was there for 45th. I want to make sure I'm there for all of the district as they have their district nights. So I'm actually be very brief in your announcement. The first announcement is, Madam Vice President, I want you to honor a moment of silence for the 4 aid workers from Catholic Relief Services who lost their lives in the Ethiopian airline crash, and Andrew Klein from ShopRite of Maryland, and Reverend Lance, Francis L. Lance, Mother Pastor Frank Lance of Mount Lebanon Baptist Church. Chair recognizes Councilman Slifer. Chair recognizes Councilman Slifer. Oh, okay. All right. Chair recognizes Councilman Dorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Just briefly, I'm heading down to Annapolis on Thursday at 1 p.m. to the Environment and Transportation Committee, to which Delegate Branch's bill for local control of the city police department is being heard, 1 o'clock. There are also a couple of other Baltimore City bills being heard at that 1 o'clock session in the Environment and Transportation Committee, one to give the city autonomy in the use of speed cameras, and one to give the city autonomy in the determination of speed limits.
That'll be a good one. Any more announcements? Chair recognizes Vice President Middleton.
The next meeting of the City Council will be held on Monday, March 18th, 2019 at 5 p.m. And may we have a moment of silence for the 4 aid workers from Catholic Relief Services who lost their lives in an Ethiopian Airlines plane crash, and also for Andrew Klein from ShopRite of Maryland, and also Frances L. Lance, mother of Pastor Frank Lance of Mount Lebanon Baptist Church, and also for the families of now 53 homicides in this city, and also for the families that are suffering with the opioid epidemic.
Thank you. There being no further business, this concludes the 53rd meeting of the 73rd term of the Baltimore City Council. Good night.